Hey guys, Gun Goober here. Today we're talking about 922R and specifically how it applies to the Benelli M4. The first thing we're going to go over is what is 922R. In my first 922R explained video on the AK series, I go into an in-depth explanation, but here for a TLDR version, 922R is basically a regulation that limits the number of foreign parts that you can have in your rifle or shotgun. Now, I don't think that anybody has ever been specifically charged for 922R. Typically, it's an add-on charge that they'll give to people who are already being charged with murder or drug trafficking, something like that. So the chances of you actually being picked up on this are extremely slim. And I think the only way that you would actually ever get convicted or in trouble with this is if you directly admit yourself that you put too many foreign parts into your shotgun or rifle. So even if you don't take my advice here in this video and change the parts out, at least you'll know perhaps what not to mention if you ever do get picked up for something like this. However, it is extremely easy and affordable in most cases to make the adjustments that you need to be compliant with this law. So in order to save yourself some headache, I highly recommend just going ahead, getting the parts, and putting them on. All right, so how does this law apply directly to the Benelli M4? The Benelli M4 is probably the most commonly searched gun in relation to 922R. And therefore, there's a lot of specific information on this specific shotgun, and there are a lot of people making aftermarket parts for this shotgun that comply with 922R. On the screen right now, you should see a determination from the ATF of exactly which parts on the Benelli M4 count towards the total. And remember, we have to replace enough parts that 10 or less of these parts are foreign made. The Benelli M4 has 13 out of the 20 parts that are considered for 922R purposes, and that number increases to 14 if you have the collapsing stock and a pistol grip. So that means that you need at least 3, and if you have the collapsing stock and pistol grip, 4 parts to make this shotgun compatible with 922R. The easiest way that you're going to do that is by replacing the trigger components. You can replace the handguard and the follower, but that only gets you 2 out of the minimum of 3 that you'll need. And the trigger components, along with the trigger housing, are 4 components, and so you can replace just the trigger parts and be completely good. The trigger components for the Benelli M4 are not extremely complicated. It is a little bit more daunting to take a look at than a AR-15 fire control group. However, I think that it would be a good exercise for any Benelli M4 owner to get into this and figure out how it works. The most annoying piece on this entire assembly here is this little snap ring. You're going to need a pair of slap ring pliers in order to take that piece off. But after that, pretty much everything else disassembles pretty easily, and it's pretty obvious how it goes back in. You can buy these aftermarket trigger guards, you can buy these aftermarket sears, disconnectors, and triggers, and this is 4 parts right here that you have already replaced on your Benelli M4, and you will never have a problem. You'll never be accused of breaking 922R if you just replace these simple parts. There are many videos on YouTube that break down exactly how to take this apart and put it back together so that you don't have any issues. There's a couple other parts that you can replace, but they're a little bit more expensive and hard to do. But they are desirable parts to have, so you may want to do them anyways. First is going to be the magazine tube. The magazine tube you see here is the 5-round titanium tube from Freedom Fighter Tactical, and it is significantly lighter weight than any of the steel counterparts that either come with the or are aftermarket. The other thing is that Freedom Fighter Tactical is now manufacturing an American-made version of this skeletonized stock. It is quite expensive. However, even the Italian versions of the stock are quite expensive as well. So unless you were lucky enough to have the stock come with the model that you purchased, then getting one from Freedom Fighter Tactical would be just about the same price as buying an Italian-made set. There are some parts that could be swapped but are actually impossible, like the barrel, which I don't think there are any American-made Benelli M4 barrels, and the pistol grip. I don't think there are any American-made pistol grips for the Benelli M4 either. That's all there is about 922R for the Benelli M4. At the end here, I think we'll go over just what I have here on this in front of you, because there'll probably be questions in the comments if I don't. First of all, this is a 14.5-inch breacher barrel with a 5-round Freedom Fighter Tactical titanium magazine tube. These are the standard handguards. This is the Mount Solutions Plus flashlight mount based off of the other one that's not made anymore. On top, I've got an Aimpoint T2, the Freedom Fighter Tactical charging handle, and the Freedom Fighter Tactical sling loop on the standard Italian skeletonized collapsing stock. On the other side, you can see I have one of those nerdy stickers that the military M4s have on them, and I have a Surefire scout light on that mount that I talked about earlier with an Arisaka momentary only push button tail cap. I'm a big fan of these shotgun cards. These are the ones from S-Tac. They have really nice elastic on them compared to the Amazon ones. However, the Amazon ones hold the rounds just fine. Maybe they just wear out sooner. But I think this is probably the best way to carry ammo on the side of your shotgun, because they can just be ripped off and replaced. These fit perfectly in an M4 mag pouch and are an easy way to feed your shotgun. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching.